Can you guys see me? Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna get started. Thank you guys for joining. As you guys are aware, it is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October 2017. We usually, not usually, the color of domestic violence awareness is purple. So I have my presentation in purple. We're just gonna jump right in. The 4 stages of domestic violence is coming up. The name of my women empowerment company is HerMillion. And the person who wrote the 4 stages of domestic violence, or the cycle, was Leonore E. Walker. And she did this in the 1970s. So she's the one that really came up with collecting the data and coming to terms, well, creating the cycle based on the stories of the women. So we're going to reference, well, I've referenced wikipedia.org, reachoutrecovery.com, and livestrong.com. I just want to put out there that none of this information was from Jessica's mind. I definitely am, reiterating the things that I researched and learned. Okay, so let's go. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence, as defined by the Department of Justice, is a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another intimate partner. Domestic violence can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. I thought it was really important to define domestic violence because a lot of people think that domestic violence is only physical. Any type of emotional, verbal, mental abuse is considered domestic violence. Sometimes it can only be psychological abuse or mental or verbal. Most times it leads to physical abuse after a prolonged period of time, but a lot of people confuse that emotional abuse is actually domestic violence. And economic, a lot of times there's women, for Lou Women Empowerment Company that I have, we're gonna talk about women. Not to say that men are not also in domestic violence relationships, but just for the sake of the company, we're gonna talk about women at this point. So there's a lot of times that women, they have a financial status that maybe they're not satisfied with or is not able to have them provide. So that allows the abuser to abuse them economically wise. So they feel trapped because someone else is paying their bills or their rent or their food, etc. I just want to reiterate on that. All right, I'm gonna go to the next slide. What does the purple ribbon or symbol stand for in domestic violence awareness? It conveys a powerful message that there's no place for domestic violence or survivors of domestic violence, who may also be wounded both physically and emotionally. The color is meant to be a symbol of peace, courage, survival, honor, and dedication to ending violence. What's the history of the purple color? The women's suffrage movement utilized purple, white, and gold in the early 1900s, as those were the colors of the National Women's Party, says Rose M. Garrity, the board president still to today. Well, it's actually the previous president, there's a new one now, of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and longtime movement member. The colors started over in England and symbolized purity, hope, and loyalty. So guys, that's what the purple stands for. Anyone who wears purple for the month of October or any time really symbolizes peace, courage, survival, and honor, dedicating to ending violence and ending domestic violence. Miss Leonore Walker, this is an updated picture of her. She came up with the terms battering cycle and the battered woman syndrome. It's now better known as the cycle of abuse, which is what we're going over, and the 4 stages of domestic violence. Click, right to the next slide. These are the 4 cycles of abuse. The first cycle, or the first stage, is called the tensions building stage. The second stage is called the incident stage. The third stage is called the reconciliation or the honeymoon stage. And then the fourth stage is called the calm stage. So we're going to go over stage by, a little bit more in depth about each stage. The first stage is called the tension building stage. During this stage, the tension builds just before an abusive act occurs. This stage includes passive-aggressive behavior on the part of the abuser, poor communication, and escalating strain between two people. The victim often strongly fears angering her partner. Therefore, in this stage, victims often try to change their behavior to prevent triggering their partner's tendencies toward violence and abuse, walking on eggshells per se. So if you've ever been in a domestic violence relationship, or if you've seen anyone who's been in one, or if you've heard stories, most of the time, this is the stage that us victims are walking on eggshells. We really are trying to figure out, how should we approach him? Should we talk about this topic? Should we not? He doesn't look like he has a good face expression. He doesn't look like he's in a good mood. How should I approach him right now? Maybe I shouldn't, right? Also, the abuser feels ignored, threatened, annoyed, or wrong. It could be anything that you're doing and the abuser's feeling this way, different ways like this. The feeling can last on average several minutes to hours, and it may last as long as several months. Other things to look out for during this stage is the tension starts and steadily builds. The abuser starts to get angry. The communication begins to break down. The victim feels the need to surrender to the abuser. So it's like the things are in the relationship are going bad. It's like it can last for the day, it can last for months, and you're just feeling this tension build and build and build. And the victim is just like, you know what? Whatever he says, I don't want to make you mad. I'm just, again, walking on eggshell type of feeling. The tension becomes too much, and the victim feels uneasy and a need to watch every move. So we're gonna go to the next one. The next stage is the incident of abuse, or the actual incident, acute violence or acting out phase. During the incident of abuse stage, the abuser tries to dominate the partner or the victim through acts of domestic violence. This can include outbursts of violent, abusive incidents such as kicking, hitting, shoving, biting, throwing objects. Incidents of abuse also include sexual abuse, emotional abuse, psychological or mental abuse, stalking, neglect, economic deprivation, intimidation, and other extremely controlling behaviors. In intimate partner violence, children are negatively affected by having witnessed the violence, and the partner's relationship degrades as well. And in the intimate partner violence, they're talking about a relationship, whether it's a marriage or a domestic relationship. You're intimate with each other, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. The release of energy reduces the tension, and the abuser may feel or express that the victim had it coming to them. So this is where the person is actually being abused. Whether they're being verbally abused, they're being put down, they're being cursed out, they're hit against the wall, being beat, or just, a single incident of being hit. This is when that tension builds, and then it's exuberated. And now the abuser is blaming the victim. You see, you had it coming. Why did you do that? You provoked me. So this is the bulk, the meat of what we know domestic violence to be. The next stage is a reconciliation, or the honeymoon phase. In this stage, the abuser will make it seem as though the violence is done, it's finished, assuring the victim that such incidents will never occur again. Apologizes and says it will change. The abuser often feels overwhelming emotions of sadness and remorse, or at least he pretends to, or fear that their partner will call or leave the police. Will leave or call the police. Some abusers even threaten suicide to prevent the victim from leaving. Most abusers shower victims with love, purchasing them expensive gifts and treating them with extra kindness. Abusers also begin minimizing, denying, or claiming the abuse wasn't as bad as the victim claims. So here, the abuser, or the person who's, the one who's hitting, or, the abuser being the batterer, or the domestic, or the person who's being domestic violent, is saying, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't, it's not as bad as you're claiming it to be. I'm sorry. Yeah. And he's saying that just that you won't leave. It's not really genuine. The victim feels pain, fear, humiliation, disrespect, confusion, and may mistakenly feel responsible. Have you ever been in a relationship or heard of someone? I'm going to speak from experience, where as the victim you say, oh man, maybe I could have avoided that. Maybe if I didn't say this, this wouldn't have happened. Maybe if my voice didn't sound this way. Maybe if I didn't sound so annoying, like he said, he wouldn't have acted this way. So a lot of times victims feel like they're the reason why this happened. Abusers are frequently so convincing and survivors are so eager for the relationship to improve that survivors, and when I say survivors, I mean he didn't kill you in the stage 2 of acting out. He didn't kill you. You survived. There's people who do die. There's statistics that show that some women don't make it past stage 2. But you made it if you're in stage 3. And so you're considered a survivor. So the survivors are so eager for the relationships to improve. And they're often worn down and confused by long-standing abuse. And they stay in the relationship. Stage 4 is the last stage. This is called the calm phase. During this phase, which is often considered and very similar to the honeymoon or reconciliation phase, the relationship is relatively calm and peaceful. The abuse slows or even stops. The abuser acts like the abuse never happened. Now the victim is like, am I crazy? Why is he talking to me like everything's okay? Didn't he just hit me? Didn't he just do this to me? Didn't he just say this and this to me yesterday or earlier today or even last week? So the victim is starting to like second guess herself. During this period, the abuser may agree to engage in counseling, ask for forgiveness. Promises made during the honeymoon stage may be met. Oh, babe did what he said he was going to do, so he's changed, right? And it creates a normal atmosphere, which often convinces the victim that the abuser has indeed changed. In intimate partner relationships, marriage, relationships period, the perpetrator may buy presents or the couple may engage in passionate sex. So now all is good and the victim thinks he's changed, he loves me, great. Over time, the batterer or the abuser's apologies and requests for forgiveness become less sincere and are generally stated to prevent separation or intervention. So now the victim is like, you're just saying sorry to say sorry. You don't really mean it. You're just saying this so I don't leave you. And he's saying anything just so she doesn't leave. He doesn't mean it at this point. The conflicts unavoidably arise because we have life, we have different perspectives on things. There's going to be arguments, there's going to be disagreements. But this again leads into the tension building stage of the relationship, which we're back to cycle, the beginning of the cycle and stage 1. And this can happen over a period of time. You may have an incident that occurred and it doesn't happen again for a year. And throughout the whole year, it's the tension building stage. You may have an incident that occurred last week and now again, it's all over again, a new situation, back at stage 1. The effects of the continual cycle may include loss of love, contempt, distress, and or physical disability, right? Intimate partners may separate, divorce, or at the extreme, someone may be killed. So guys, this is the whole stage. This is the breakdown of each stage of the domestic violence cycle. The next slide is an excerpt. If I'm saying it right, it's a clip. It's a video clip that I pulled out from Dr. Phil. I was watching it the other day on domestic violence. It may freeze, but you'll be able to hear what's happening. So I'm gonna press play now.
Jess, I can't hear the clip.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go previous. Let me see if you guys hear it now.
My boyfriend Matt.
How about now?
Bring my family up because he thought I was lying to him. He thinks that I'm daughter-in-law. He said I belong on the streets and I was gonna be homeless and that he was gonna take my son from me.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. You can hear it now? Okay, awesome. Let's go back again. Sorry about that. All right.
My boyfriend Matt wants to bring my family up because he thought I was lying to him. He thinks that I'm daughter-in-law. He said I belong on the streets and I was gonna be homeless and that he was gonna take my son from me.
20-year-old I.AM.JESS says that her relationship with Matt is being destroyed by his controlling and jealous way. They have a 1-year-old son together, and another one on the way. She's terrified that they never could because he threatens to take their son and leave her homeless. Robert, I want to ask you to weigh in on this really quick. Matt, she's my wife. She's also one of the leading domestic violence advocates in America. She has a foundation with Georgia Smiles and just devoted to prevention of domestic violence. She has something called the Inspire Initiative, which is interactive with employees, teams, adults, learn about domestic violence, changing schools all over the country, recognize
And what we're seeing here today is verbal and mental abuse. And it really, like you saw before the show, when you whisper in my ear something horrible thing, I mean, that he is saying to you, that's verbal abuse. You are in an abusive relationship. And, you know, I'm sitting here during the show, and my instinct as a woman is to just run up there and grab you, to take you out of here as fast as I can, run out the back door. Try to keep you from, you know, of course I can't do that. I want to. But what we're here to do today is to educate you and to tell you that you are being abused. You do not have to be talked to this way and treated this way. You can demand that he treat you this way. You can demand that he treat you in an honorable way. And you can demand of yourself that you will not accept that of him. You have the right to tell him. Yourself. I'm going to honor myself. I'm going to treat myself with respect. I'm going to treat myself with dignity. And I am going to give myself the right to walk away.
this is a I bring up all the time. I've never torn that. Was it my wife said? No. I thought she never heard it. Your wife is also on. I thought she never heard it. I'm still stuck on what you're saying. Okay, listen, I'm still stuck on the screen. Okay, let me tell you why I'm not going to give you a secret about what's stuck on the screen. Okay. I'm not going to go play this game with you and argue the ridiculousness of the wording on the screen. Let me ask you something. Are you abusive? Yeah, but earlier I say very hurtful things. Okay. Are you abusive with Eileen? Yeah. Do you threaten her? No, I don't know. You might look like I look like something. But you try to manage your life. So that's what I'm doing. So you verbally abuse, you dare abuse, you know, you and I got that? You got that? He does not trap her in this relationship.
Where I hope you guys are able to hear it afterwards. Oh, it's low. Okay, okay. That's my first time putting a video in a clip. I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. I can send you guys the link to that video in the chat before I end the presentation. It's not too long. You've seen it. It's about maybe four minutes. So that you guys can hear it. I am so sorry. Yeah, what he basically spoke about was, you know, there was this abuser in the relationship, and it was verbal abuse. The lady was talking about wishing she could just grab the girl and take her and go, but it's really the girl's choice. So again, I'm gonna send you guys a link. Can you hear me? Gina, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. So I'm gonna keep going again. I'm gonna send the link afterward. It was really important. That video, I thought it was so good. It's so good because the lady spoke about, Dr. Phil's wife spoke about emotional abuse. Again, people think that domestic violence, because of the word violence, is physical. Well, most of the time, this begins with emotional and verbal abuse. Yeah, so if you're in this and in a domestic violence relationship, where can you go? I didn't want to end the presentation without some information on where to go. There's a National Domestic Violence Hotline available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is 800-799-7233. Or you can schedule a visit with a professional in your area. You can Google and find some programs. You can also check some domestic violence and shelter programs to reach out to by going to www.domesticshelters.org. This is a snapshot of how the website looks. Here you can literally put in your zip code, and I put in my zip code, and it popped up different programs and shelters to go to. So you can share this with your family and friends if you're not the one who's in the relationship of domestic violence, or if you are. This is definitely a good website to bookmark on your phone or laptop or whatever electronic device you use. And you know, I want to speak to you ladies who have joined, whether it's because you're going through something right now or because you wanted to be, you know, aware of what exactly is the cycle. A lot of adults, you know, pretty aged adults, they don't know the cycle. So I think this is so important for us to share the information. Now that you know the 4 stages of the cycle, you can recognize it if you're in it, or you can, you know, share it and someone else can recognize it. And I want to speak to those women who are in it at the moment, or trying to heal from it. You know, I want you to know that, and one of the reasons why this touches me so much is, you know, while you're in a domestic violent relationship, very rarely do you hear positive things. Very rarely do you hear positive things about yourself. And sometimes it's hard to look at yourself in the mirror. Sometimes it's hard to say one thing or 2 things that are good about yourself. Sometimes you can be superwoman and may not see what everybody else sees because of either the past that you have with you from a domestic violent relationship, or you know, having low self-esteem, because that's what it causes at times, most of the time. Or, you know, you're in it at the moment, so you don't hear. So what you don't hear, I'm going to share with you, and I want you guys to take this with you and know that there are people out there who care, that you can reach out to. These are some quotes that I have found. I'm not crazy or unstable. I was abused. I am a survivor. I've become a warrior myself in the fight against domestic violence. A quote from a domestic violence survivor. I survived domestic violence. I spoke up and I choose to live. Now, you could be surviving while you're in it. Recognize it. Speak up. Choose your life over his. You can break down a woman temporarily, But a real woman will always pick up the pieces, rebuild herself, and come back stronger than ever. No matter what you are going through, know that you can get back up because you have your heart. Nobody has control over your heart but God. Your heart is beating not because of him or anybody else. Your heart is beating because God has a mission for you. You have a purpose to live. Your heart is beating because that's your heart, and you belong. Your heart belongs to you. You have control over your heart, not him. Believe me, you are beautiful. And I know a lot of women are probably like, don't you dare tell me how easy it is to leave an abusive relationship when you've never been in one. But I'm here to tell you that I do this movement and I speak with passion because I have been in one. I've been in there too, and I left. And I left and I struggled through the years after. So it was the 9 years in it and many years after, still over 10 years of struggle to get through what I have gone through, and still going through it. Still going through leaving and healing. You understand? Because you can leave someone for years, but you still have that hurt on top of you, and it can affect where you're at now, right? Just know I'm speaking from experience. I've been there. I've been in one, and I left. It wasn't easy, but I did it. You are beautiful. You are strong. You are worth it. You are beautiful inside and out. And if no one has ever told you, I'm telling you. Be a survivor. Open your mouth. Demand respect. Walk away, and I promise you, your life will be better. It's going to be a struggle for a little bit, but afterwards it's going to be blissful because you have no one abusing you anymore. I promise you it's worth it. Stay tuned. I'm going to continue to talk about domestic violence for the rest of this month. Next week, if not next week, then definitely in November, we're going to be going over the battered woman syndrome, and there's cycle to that. After you leave the abuser, after you recognize and you decided to finally leave, how do you do it? There's so many stages that we go through as a victim. It's not just get up and go and life is great. You go through a process, and I'm going to help you go through that process. And if not help you go through it, then make you aware of it. So when you're ready to leave, you're ready to face that process. And after that, we're going to go over emotional abuse, because that's where this all starts. We're going to dissect emotional abuse. We're going to have guests on our podcast. We're going to have police officers speak about real life death situations that start from emotional abuse. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any comments or questions, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. The chat is open. I'm going to give it a few minutes before I go ahead and shut down. So go ahead. The floor is yours, guys. Oh, and here is my next slide, my contact information. The Women Empowerment Company is HerMillion. The domestic violence movement is called I.AM.JESS. The Facebook information is HerMillion LLC, I.AM.JESS. Instagram is official I.AM.JESS, HerMillion NYC, and the email is hermillionnyc@gmail.com. My website is hermillion.org. So I don't know how to work this. Bear with me. Do you guys have any questions? Any comments? Again, it's just a few more. I'm gonna give you guys about 30 seconds, and then none. Just say none, so I can exit and stop the video. Nobody? Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Share this. It's going to be up, recorded on Facebook to share, and also on YouTube. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, guys. Bye. Oh, wait. I'm going to send you guys the link. Hold on 1 second. I have to look it up, so sorry. $30 more seconds. Sorry. Oh boy. I'm still looking for it, guys. I'm so sorry. Hold on. feel emotional abuse. Here we go. I got it. Okay. So I'm going to send it to everyone. There's the link, guys. So you can click on it and you have access. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to end the meeting. It's actually still recording. Okay, I didn't do a good job of that. But I'm going to end the meeting. And again, I appreciate everyone attending. Bye.